Hello and welcome everybody to today's webinar. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few things very briefly. If you would like to turn on your closed captions, this would be a great time to do. You can find it on the bottom panel of Zoom. This is a webinar format, which means that your cameras and your microphone is turned off by default. However, we do encourage you to interact with each other, and we encourage you to interact with the hosts and the panelists. So please go ahead and use the chat feature. If you have any specific questions for the panelists regarding the presentation, go ahead and use the Q&A feature. And last but not least, this webinar is recorded, and the recording will be available on our ACRO website 24 to 48 hours after recording. And without any further ado, I will hand it over to Julia. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Belma. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad you're here. Today is the 15th of February. And for those of you eager to know what's on the Farmer's Almanac today, it is a great day to color your hair, according to the Farmer's Almanac. Clearly, I am not listening to that. It's also National Flag Day of Canada and Susan B. Anthony's birthday, somebody who should definitely be celebrated. I want to welcome you all to our February Edge user group, and I want to introduce our wonderful panel of experts, the International Education Standards Council. They are chaired by Jasmine Saidi Cunard. Jasmine is the chair, and she's also the president and CEO and founder of ACEI. Also joining us today from the International Education Standards Council are Emily Say, Shelby Kearley, and Robert Watkins. Always good to have all of them here as well. So what is the International Education Standards Council? It's a panel of experts coming from institutions, credential evaluations, et cetera, who have years and years, decades, I would dare to say, of experience doing this work. They basically help us collect research. They review, prepare, and approve all the recommendations that you find in EDGE. They also go through, and if things need to be updated and changed, they help and assist doing that as well and making sure that everything is up to date. So this really represents a majority consensus of our membership as well as the IESC. So we're very grateful for the work that they do and their volunteerism to ACRO. Also joining me today are my colleagues at ACRO, David Mahaly and Drew Carlisle. So glad they are here as well. And we will begin, as we begin all of these, with a poll to see who we have here. Velma, would you launch the poll for us? All right, here are our standard questions. The first one being, are you an EDGE subscriber? Is this your first user group? And what segment do you represent? Institutional, evaluation service, government, or law firm? Today is also, while you're filling that out, I'll give you a few more little tidbits from the Farmer's Almanac. A good day to cut your hair as well. This is all based on the moon, so I'm not sure what that means. If the growth is going to slow down, so coloring your hair, you'll get more bang for your coloring buck. And it's a good day to harvest above the ground crops if they haven't already been harvested. We also are coming up with a full snow moon, but that's not until the 24th of February, so something else to look forward to. How are we doing on that poll, Velma? Ooh, awesome. EDGE subscriber, 97% of you. We're going to get that last 3% yet one of these days. So by all means, if you're not currently an EDGE subscriber, we do hope that you will join us. Is this your first EDGE user group? Welcome to the 17% of you that haven't been here before. We're glad you're here. We hope you'll join us again. And many thanks to the 83% of you who have been here before. We appreciate the fact that you continue to come back and join us. And 88% of you, the vast majority, are from an institution. Always great to have our institutional members with us. So glad you're here. And evaluation service, 12%. All right. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my good colleague, Drew Carlisle, who will go over today's agenda.
Hey, thanks, Julia. But before you go, I got a question for you. Do you have anything in the Farmer's Almanac that doesn't involve cutting my hair or coloring it? I don't have a lot of options to implement that. Am I supposed to?
Yes, you should be out harvesting those crops. That's what you need to be doing today.
I am not a yeoman. I don't have a small plot of land, but maybe I do need to develop a little bit of a green thumb. I have fake plants about, but
Well,
maybe
then
some
it's a
real ones
good
would
day
do.
to relax and not do anything.
Well, I do want to talk about a few things. Like we've got an Eurasian baccalaureate from Armenia that we're going to discuss for a little bit. That's something that we've got some great details on and some samples too. We'll talk about integrated master's degrees from the United Kingdom. That's something that that our colleagues on the IESC have encountered personally, and there's going to be a lot of good discussion there. My colleague is going to be discussing something that we're updating within Czechia, the engineer degrees. Sorry for all of my pronunciation. And we also need to pop across the Mediterranean and talk about a collection of Diplôme d'ingénieur and Diplôme national d'ingénieur. There's some updates that we're looking at in that whole North African region where there's a few similarities that we're going to speak on. And let's pop back west across over to South America, and well, I guess you could go east too. There's all kinds of ways, and check on those secondary grading scales that we have updates for you on. But we are going to begin over in the mountains. I'm going to pass this right over to you, Emily.
Great, thank you so much. It was actually Jasmine, our chair, who noticed that the Russian Baccalaureate is missing from EDGE. So we sought to correct that. The AB, or Russian Baccalaureate, was actually designed by the EIB Foundation, which is an educational nonprofit. And they did this with the support of the Ministry of Education as part of the National Program for Educational Excellence. They did this with the assistance of Cambridge Assessment International Education. So the AB is actually not dissimilar from the Egyptian CNISE. Some of you may remember this from a couple of years ago when we talked about that, which is the Certificate of Nile International Secondary Education. So the Armenian AB and the Egyptian CNISE were developed to be an internationally competitive and rigorous alternative for high-achieving high school students. And they were both developed, again, in partnership or collaboration with Cambridge Assessment International Education. The AB specifically was first awarded in 2016, and it covers upper secondary ed, which is grades 10, 11, and 12. The program is taught in Armenian, but there is an expectation that there will be a strong proficiency developed also in Russian and English, which are included as part of the studies. In fact, again, it's expected that students will eventually be taking TOEFL and IELTS. It is administered and assessed by ABEC, the Russian Baccalaureate Examination Center with Cambridge. What is interesting when we dug deep to work on the entry for EDGE is that we found out that it is the STEM subjects that are jointly certified by Cambridge and ABEC. Otherwise, if it's not a science or math subject, it is solely done by ABEC in terms of the awarding of the credential. There are two levels as far as subjects go. There is standard and extended. This again is designed in partnership with Cambridge, so they certify that the standard level subjects are comparable to their AS levels, and that the extended level subjects are comparable to their A levels. And this is stated as such directly on the certificates. Meanwhile, in 2016, when this was launched, UK NERIC did an independent benchmarking study and confirmed that, in their view, the standard level subjects are comparable to AS levels, and again, extended level comparable to A levels. And in addition to that, they further stated that the AB in general is comparable to AP, Advanced Placement Subjects. On to the next slide.
Well,
Thank
hey,
you.
Emily, before we go on to the next, I'm going to jump in for 1 second and share that what you're looking at here
Please
is
do.
not indicative of the quality of the sample that you're going to be able to see once you log into Edge. When we have these sample documents that have been appropriately redacted and are uploaded there into Edge, it's really useful for you to be able to go in and reference all of these things so you can do that comparison one-to-one in that original native language. Sorry to interrupt, Emily. Just wanted to
No,
highlight that for anybody.
thank you. So it's not an eye exam, guys. Okay, so
Correct.
more on the AV. As far as required subjects, students do have to take extended level Armenian studies and English, and up to 2 additional extended level subjects. For the final exam, the grades are capital A star through E for extended level, and then lowercase a through E without the star for standard level. So it's very similar to the UK AS and A level grading scales, and then you can just adapt them because it was just modeled after that based on their, again, collaboration with Cambridge. So that's what you saw on the previous slide. On this slide, it's an internal transcript for years 10 and 11, and you'll see that the grades are different. The internal grades are actually out of 100. You also see an entry for project-based learning, and that is another unique feature of the AB. Students are required to do an interdisciplinary project with a social impact bent. This credential is recognized by the Ministry of Education and by Armenian universities. What is interesting is that AB holders are also automatically given the certificate of completed secondary general education, and they do not have to take the unified state examination. So they are actually given a preferred consideration for university admission in that regard. On to the next slide. So that's the AB. While we were looking at this, we noticed that some updates were also needed for 2 other credentials at the lower and upper secondary level. We have the Certificate of Basic Education. It now reflects a total of 9 years of study. Previously, prior to 2001, it was 8 years, but now it's 9. And then for the Certificate of Complete Secondary General Education, it now reflects a total of 12 years of study. Previously, it was 11 with a 9+2 structure. And then prior to 2001, it was 10 years with an 8+2 structure. So now, regardless if you're talking about the AB or the Certificate of Complete Secondary General Education, it's going to be a total of 12 years. Okay, so on to the UK with the 4-year integrated master's degree. We do see a lot of integrated master's degrees cropping up. In the UK, it's a total of 4 years because we have, of course, A levels, a 3-year bachelor, and then the master. It is a single continuous program that results in one qualification, the master's degree. And the idea behind this is that there is no separate admissions process for the bachelor and the master. So it's just one continuous program. But again, it does cover 3 years of bachelor level content and 1 year of master's level content. The integrated master is pegged at level 7, like all the other UK master's degrees. And so it does give access to doctoral studies. Examples include the Master of Engineering, Master of Physics, Master of Nursing. So you do tend to find these 4-year integrated master's degrees in engineering sciences and health sciences.
Sorry there, Drew. I was having trouble unmuting and getting my video together.
Quite all right, Dave. I'll forgive it this time. You're gonna take us through Europe and head over to talk about some engineer degrees.
Yes, engineer. So here's the deal. When education systems change, such as the shift we saw in Europe, it gives confusion a chance to get its foot in the door. And we had a, excuse me, we had a perfectly good entry for Czech Republic engineering master's level credentials. However, it was out of date, and I came across this dealing with something in another country, and I wondered, what we had for Czech Republic when I saw that not all the entries, across this region had been updated. This was a chance to just do this one. But the way it used to be, and we'll see the slide in a minute, we don't have to fast forward to it, but you had a 5-year sequence leading to the title of engineer. And nowadays, you have a 4-year baccalaureate, and then you have your master's level credential. But the master's level credentials can either say engineer, or it can say master, or it can say magister. And so the length can also be different. So we have a chance to have different entries now for master's degrees depending on the length. In the case of the engineering diplomas, even though the academic title that's awarded is the engineer, it's actually a master's level credential. And in specific, you have 240 ECTS baccalaureate, and then you have 120 credits after that for the engineer, which leads to the 360 total. So you have a 6-year total sequence, which before, the comparability advice had been for the 5-year engineering degrees, comparability to a U.S. bachelor's. Now we have a clear 4+2. So it's not entirely dissimilar to the situation in Spain, where you had the licenciaturas were usually 5 until closer to the turn of the century, when the 4-year one started to creep in. But now you have, the first degree of 4 and 1.5 or 2, or even 1 for the master. But anyway, we're talking about Czech Republic. So this credential advice will be updated. And if you want to advanced 1 or 2, Belma will see the suggested advice. So here's the old entry that we currently have up, and with the engineer as a bachelor's comparability. And the new wording is going to suggest that this level of credential, which goes by several different names. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the engineer architect is also on that same level with the master's level 7 qualification. So here we have the entry as it is going to look. And I think that pretty much does it for the Czech engineer credential, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not mistaken, Dave, but I am just going to highlight for everyone, because since we did have some folks that this is their first time coming in, that so when we know how long a credential is in terms of ECTS, that's a very useful way that we can represent that information in Edge for you. When we talk about 1 year or 3 years of education, we are always assuming that this is at full-time enrollment over that the entire school year is what we're looking at. So just want to make that clear, that we'll include that detail about ECTS when we have that detail. We don't always have that type of information for every credential out there. And there's a lot of credentials that we're going to be talking about from a whole region spanning across the whole North African kind of region there. Robert, you want to jump on and talk about our next item?
Sure, Drew. I think I mentioned this last time that we were working on this, but in a more direct fashion. I think I said we were hung up because of Morocco, and so we're gonna. But it turns out that even though we're hung up on one particular country's engineering degree, and I'll tell you why we're hung up. It appears the information we have is that it doesn't go directly to a master's, or to a PhD. Put it another way, it may have been true once before, but once they adopted the LMD pathway, that it may have changed. So we're digging into that. But what we are going to do is get moving on the ones that we can address right away. And that's my project. And I'm the slow one on this because I was in DC for 2 weeks. With a few days in between at the CHIA conference and then later at the Acro Institute. So I hope to get this squared away, and to Jasmine and the group ideally for tomorrow, but that could be asking a lot of myself. We'll see. Anyway, I'll give you a hint on what we're doing. We're strongly considering changing the credential advice on the ones that do access directly a PhD to equivalents of a U.S. master's from the current U.S. bachelor's. It may be that we end up doing a time split on that so that older ones maybe not, newer ones that are 300 ECTS, we would say yes, a master's. But we still need to work on that a little bit more and decide before we put it up for you to see and to work with. So that's where we are. I'm hoping to get this done soon. And back to you, Drew.
Thank you, Robert. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move on to one final item, and we're going to talk about some possible updates in some secondary grading scales. Shelby, we were talking about the beach earlier.
Yeah.
You got any nice beaches there in West Texas? It's kind of it's sandy, right?
We do have some beaches, but they're not like the beautiful beaches with the ocean and whatnot. Our sand is blowing. So we have these lovely sandstorms and haboobs and whatnot. So we have lots of sand, but no beautiful beaches to go with them.
Peru's got some beautiful beaches. You want to talk to us about
Sure.
what the students are doing down there?
Absolutely. Late last year, a question was posted on the TICEP Gaggle listserv asking if anybody was familiar with this updated grading scale for secondary students in Peru. And that prompted the IESC to look at the grading scales page on the Peru entry in EDGE and see that we only have the one scale. And so we decided that we needed to do some research to determine, is this in fact a new grading scale? When was this implemented, and additional information? So yes, there is a new, relatively new grading scale at the secondary level. The official name is the Escala Alfabética de Calificación, or the alphabetical grading scale. You'll see it referred to as the Logro scale, and that'll become clear when we go to the next slide in just a moment. This scale was proposed in 2016, but didn't really go into effect until 2017. And it is already being used at the primary level. And it's based on competencies, competency achievement of the student, rather than a numeric grade. Minedu, the nickname for the Ministry of Education in Peru, felt that grading students on their competencies was a better and more reflective way to indicate someone's performance or someone's understanding of the material studied, rather than basing it on a generic 20-point scale, which is what they had been using. So as you can see on this scale, there is a new scale, and you'll see either the letter grades or you may see the descriptor. So the letter grades are A, D, A, B, and C. And the descriptors are logro destacado, or outstanding achievement. And you can see what that AD reflects below. I'm not going to read that to you. A is a logro esperado, or expected achievement. B is en proceso, or in process. And C is en inicio, or initial competence, which is considered to be a fail. So if you'll go to the next slide. All right, so unfortunately, if you want some interesting bedtime reading, I suggest you go look up the very heated public debates that were held when the public was asked for comments about these proposed grading scales and the changes that it would necessitate for secondary students, particularly those who might be going on to further higher education. There was a lot of a lot of infighting about why this was necessary. Why are you implementing this all at once? We need to have this staged in. So the government kind of agreed to a staged rollout. As I'd mentioned, this was already being used at the primary level. And at the secondary level, the letter grades, A, D, A, B, and C, were actually already in use, but it was for the comportamiento, or the behavior grades that you don't really use for any credential evaluation purposes. It just lets you know this person had good behavior in school. The descriptors are a little bit different for the comportment grades. So there was a staged implementation beginning in the 2016-17 school year. So it is possible that you are going to see mixed credentials. So the table that's on this screen is a combination of the 20-point scale that you may see for some of the grades of secondary education and the Logro scale that you will see for other grades at the secondary level. So it was expected that by 2022, 2023, the Logro scale would be fully implemented at the secondary level. I haven't found confirmation yet that that has actually happened, so you may still see mixed grading scales, but this is the recommended letter grade equivalencies for the 20-point scale and the new Logro scale together. And I don't have a sample credential just yet. I've reached out to a colleague, the colleague who actually posted the initial question on the TISEP Gaggle, to see if I can get a copy of that document, because that may be an example of one that has mixed scale on it, since I think it was from 2021. And if we get that, we will redact that and add that to the EDGE profile for Peru so that you guys can see what that might look like. And with that, I will turn it back over to Drew.
Hey, thank you, Shelby. And so all of that just to kind of say, Shelby said these are the suggested scales for it. The grading scales and all of the placement recommendations, those are the things that our IESC collaborate on and really use their expertise and contribute to EDGE right there. You're going to see all of that is back and forth, all of that, you know, how Robert was talking about what he needed to get done by tomorrow. There is a lovely work ethic, and people want to provide this research and want to further these discussions. But however much you guys do on the front end, when you're submitting those redacted documents, that really helps all of our experts be able to do even more to push that through. So Shelby, just wanted to highlight that that grading scale that we've gone through, there's been discussion back and forth, a whole thread within the ACRO Exchange. For those of you that are relatively new to ACRO, we just switched over to a different communication platform where it's more of a community. There's lots of communities here within the ACRO Exchange, and one of them that's only for us. It's just for where we're talking all this back and forth. It's where we're having all of these discussions about all of these credentials. All of you who are ACRO members, you're able to get onto your ACRO roster and access all of these benefits within ACRO Exchange. One of them is the International Activities community. You can go in there and you can pose your questions, and it's going to go out to other colleagues that are in the field, that are encountering these credentials. You know, someone's looking for information on the Iranian ministry's website is down. It's been down for 2 months. Does anyone have a link? Anyone have a copy of that? When's it from? That's a wonderful place to find all of those resources and to see what you can find, see what you can share. Anywho, with all that, let's get in and talk about what's coming up. Julia, I see there's something on the horizon. It's getting dark.
That's it. That is the ACRO annual meeting, which is coming up in Columbus, Ohio, April 7th to the 10th. It's going to be a really great meeting. We're excited to see any of you that can join us there. There are more than 24 international specific sessions, luncheon, roundtables, workshops, etc., including a CVIS update, recovery and resilience of international student mobility in the United States. There's transnational education, current higher education grading practices in India. Our new fellows will be there with Robert to present a session. I think everybody that's on this IESC call is probably presenting. Shelby, are you presenting? Maybe not. I might have spoke too soon.
Yes. I am presenting on developing policy for stateless states, recognition of stateless states, and what do you do with those credentials when they come in? How do you determine if that might be the equivalent of a regionally accredited college or university in the United States?
Wow, that should be a great session. And if anybody else wants to pipe up on what they're doing, I know Dave's doing a couple of things, Robert, Emily, are you doing a session? I can't remember, Jasmine?
Yeah, I'll actually be doing a session on the digital delivery of credential evaluations, and we're going to be talking about the survey in an upcoming slide. So
I knew that.
Put that in then.
There you
Thanks,
go.
Julia.
And Julia, Bill Paper and I will be doing one on how to research an EDGE profile.
Oh, and please come to that, audience, because we really would love to welcome you into writing your EDGE profile. At any rate, the conference will sure to be engaging. It's going to be good, a great way to network and meet colleagues and make new friends. And there's also going to be a solar eclipse, and Columbus happens to be in the 99% viewing area of the solar eclipse. So a great place to be. Next slide. I think that's enough said about that. And I'm going to turn it over to Emily for this.
It was a perfect segue. Emily,
Yes,
do you
it
have
was.
a presentation that you're going to be doing at Columbus?
Couldn't have planned it better. Thanks, guys. So there is a working group that was formed, the Digital Delivery of Credential Evaluations Working Group, or the DDCEWG, because that's what we do in this field, have tons of acronyms and abbreviations. But this group formed in late 2022, following the 10-year anniversary conference of the Groningen Declaration Network. And this group is an assembly of different evaluation agencies promoting best practices when it comes to safe and effective delivery of evaluation reports. Given the sensitive information, the student data that is provided in the reports, the idea is to really advocate for treating them in a similar manner to transcripts, again, because of the information that's contained there. There is a profile that you can view for this working group in LinkedIn. And we've teamed up with ACRO to issue a quick survey for higher ed institutions in Canada and US on just how you, if you do receive evaluation reports, how do you receive them? It's, again, a super quick survey, and the concern and idea, besides, making sure you're ensuring data privacy and whatnot, is also fraud. I posted recently that fraud comes in all shapes and sizes, and unfortunately that includes credential evaluation reports being falsified. So that's another reason why we want to encourage digital delivery. So if you are a higher institution, again, in Canada, US, please do fill out the quick survey, and then we're going to be talking about the results and these efforts, and again, best practices at the upcoming ACRO conference. Thanks. Oh, that's me again. Okay.
But I figured you'd want to talk a little bit more about the
sorry.
Setmeyer Award, Emily. I didn't want to
Thank
jump in
you.
and take you, cut you
Yes.
off, but
yes, indeed. Thanks, Drew. So I think, by virtue of us all being here, we agree that credential evaluation research is so important, and sharing that information. Unfortunately, sometimes credential evaluation, whether the work is done at a university or at an agency, sometimes the work can be underappreciated and misunderstood, which is why this award is really important. It's to showcase and honor efforts done in this space. And it's at the individual level, so, or teams of individuals. So for example, it could be a conference presentation, newsletter article, webinar, blog. As long as it was completed in 2023, you can apply. And the deadline is next month, March 15th. And what's great is that it's regardless of citizenship or country of residence. The selected recipient will receive $1,000 US. And the application process is really easy because it honors completed research. You don't have to do a proposal with outlines and drafts and plans and whatnot. It's for completed research. So all you have to do is forward that completed research, and prove that it was done last year in 2023. So it really is a simple process. Apply or nominate someone whose research you've really appreciate and come to depend on. Definitely nominate them or encourage them to apply. And one interesting tidbit is that our very own IESC Leslie Eicher was a past recipient of the Sepmeyer Award. So do keep this on your radar. Thanks.
Yeah, that was perfect right there, Shelby. Just yeah, great minds, absolutely on that same wavelength. So earlier in the webinar here, I did talk about the Acro Exchange just a little bit. For any of you that have attempted to post onto the International Activities group through the historic Acro listserv, that is not going to be functional for you any longer. You will just need to, it's exclusive for Acro members, but you can have an unlimited number of folks at your institution on that Acro membership roster. You can log in to the Exchange using the same login codes that you use to get into Edge. And it is, like I said, it's a great place where you can go and talk about all of those questions that you have. So on the next page, we can go ahead and just show you just one more time. We've had a couple of questions about roster management, and so I'll do this much quicker than last time. If you are the Edge manager, that means you have day-to-day editing access of who is on your subscription. See this one, back one slide there. This one is going to have 10 users for this Edge subscription, and you get to it once you've logged into your account. If you're the Edge manager, you just go around the left-hand side. You see where it says subscriptions, click on that tab and select the Edge subscription you want to manage. On that next slide, you'll see what it looks like. And only those folks that are assigned in that very first column, that tick mark there next to Jackie Walker's name indicates that Jackie is someone that has current access to what subscription are we managing? There at the top, it says Edge subscription 10 users. So that's how you know that Jackie Walker logs in using Jacqueline Walker whatever her email address is to get into Acro Edge and to get into all Acro web-based products and services. On to the next slide, we are going to go and talk just a little bit about the Gloria R. Nathanson Research Fund. Emily, you raise an excellent point that for completed research, the Sepmeyer Award is great. There is not an arduous process of needing to submit all of the steps that you're going to be going through. But if you are getting ready to be working on something, that outlining process is something that we all do as part of any project that we're going to undertake like that. And those are the types of things that you could submit to get some of those expenses defrayed for your research that's coming up. If we have any other comments about this, Julia, you can hop on and share. But whether you're going to do the research or you have completed the research, we want to find ways to honor and support furthering all of that within understanding international education. On to the next.
I think our next is the Q&A, Drew.
Yeah.
You'd like to help go through that? We do have a couple of questions. Robert, I know you answered the first one, but I'd like you to go ahead and answer this live as well. We had a question that said, how would a student who moves to the UK from another country after 10th grade and begins the AS or advanced level program without completing the GCSE or the IGCSE?
Sure.
IGCSE.
The key here, as far as I'm concerned, and I guess I'd be speaking for the University of Texas, a highly selective institution, I would be fine. The key here is there needs to be some kind of capstone achievement that we can point to and say that's a high school diploma or the equivalent thereof. And in this case, the one that was suggested, although I need to be careful here because the wording actually said, and begins an AS or A-level program. The key to me is that they complete it, they get the A or AS, and then, and of course, I'll look at the result, I'll look at what the subjects were, and all that sort of thing. But that will be the capstone achievement in my mind that enables me to say, aha, this person has the equivalent of graduation from senior high school in the US. And of course, being A's and AS's, I would also consider some advanced placement credit. It'll be a little weird going from 10th to 2 years, resulting in an A or AS, but because it's two different systems. But nevertheless, I think the achievement of that A and or AS is the way I think I answered it in writing, is going to be the key. Now, that probably raises another question. What if the individual applies to my school and hasn't done any of those yet? Well, I take him the way I would say an 11th grader in the United States who's about to graduate from high school soon. And the answer is, I'm not sure. I would be very concerned that the individual might leave that program having already been admitted, perhaps, with it in progress, and not finish, and then leave me high and dry in terms of not having a benchmark credential to point to. So I may have to tell the individual that he may have to wait. It can't come in the fall, might have to come in the spring, because we're not going to get the results until August and the certificate until October, November. So that may be a small caveat there, but I'd be totally happy with those British credentials representing high school graduation in terms of admission.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to what Robert is saying in terms of the UK perspective. So normally, yeah, GCSEs and IGCSEs are required to move on to AS and A levels. The most common route is to do a program at a college of further education, sixth form school. You might have heard of those terms. If they don't have GCSEs or IGCSEs, they may be considered for admission to the sixth form school. For example, you can do so as a private candidate. And students also do all sorts of other routes like access programs or BTECs and whatnot. So I guess it is possible to skip or jump GCSEs and go into AS and A levels, but it's just not commonly done. And it will depend on how that college of further education would view that student.
And can I just add that I saw it once in my 46 years here at UT, and it was exactly that. It was an American athlete who had finished 10th grade, I think in Kentucky or somewhere, and was admitted to a sixth form college. When I first started, the British were not very sophisticated about U.S. high school enrichment programs, APs, IBs, etc. They have become much more so, and feel a little more confident about handling U.S. high school transcripts and stuff. And so it wouldn't be surprising to me if the scenario that's been described here would happen again. Again, only once in 46 years did I see it, but it's not impossible to see it again. And it looks like we're about to.
All right, we do have another question. And I'm going to invite anyone here to answer this. It's, do you see this trend of state-driven baccalaureates mimicking similar international degrees or credentials in other post-Soviet states, or is it a completely isolated case? Emily, I don't know if you want to take that or.
So I personally, I'm not aware of any others that are on the horizon. I do welcome anyone, even in the audience, to jump in the chat if they have seen this. I can say about the Russian Baccalaureate and the in Armenia and the Certificate of Nile International Secondary Education, the CNISE in Egypt. In both instances, there was an independent educational group that helped be an agent of the process, right? So for an AB, it was the IBE Foundation. For CNISE, it was the Nile's Egyptian schools. And so they had the blessing of the Ministry of Education. They partnered with Cambridge Assessment International Education. So there are a couple of things that had to align and be put in place for these alternatives to happen. So those are two instances where again, it was because the IBE Foundation or the Nile Egyptian schools were happy to help push that through. So we'll see if that happens in any other country. But I'm not aware of any, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Anybody else want to add to that? I would say the same as Emily said. but-
Yeah, I haven't seen that in other post-Soviet states. I mean, I've seen other countries that have worked with Cambridge International to create a new national certificate that is issued in coordination with them, and they helped develop the curriculum and whatnot, but that's it.
Okay, Shelby, I'm going to have you stay on for one more second because we're going to deal with the other question we saw. And basically there were two, and these were from an anonymous attendee asking, out of curiosity, is Taiwan, AKA the Republic of China, considered a stateless state? And then they followed that up, what about Palestine?
That's a very good question. And this is why you should come to my ACRO session on Wednesday morning, because we're going to actually be talking about what is the definition of limited recognition states. That's technically the term we should be using. And the answer for Taiwan is yes, it is considered a quasi-state. And what that means is it technically meets the de facto definition of a state, but it is not recognized consistently by other countries as an independent state. I have not yet decided if I actually will be discussing Taiwan specifically, because there's been some chatter about Taiwan and China's relationships and whatnot. So I haven't yet decided if we're going to be discussing Taiwan, but Taiwan is actually an example of one of these limited recognition states that already has a very robust system of quality assurance and educational oversight for institutions. Palestine is also considered a limited recognition state because there are some countries that do see it as an independent country, but it doesn't meet all of the definitions for a de facto state. And there is also very heated political discussions about whether or not other countries outside of the immediate area see it as an independent country as well. So that's what we'll be talking about on Wednesday the 10th. I think it's at 10 o'clock, but I'll check the schedule. And if you have any questions in the meantime related to that, you guys are always welcome to email me.
And Shelby's one of those people that does sometimes see things on the Acro Exchange, on that international activities community. That might be a place that if she had the ability to share that information, she could do that with you. I'm just going to say one thing about Palestine and Taiwan for EDGE. What we want to do with an EDGE, all of those political issues that Shelby referenced there, we are just talking about education systems and sharing information. When we post information, it is designed to be informative, and we're not going to make those judgment calls. We are going to try to provide as much information about the recognition of internal, institutions, degrees, documents, those types of things. And we will include only so much information as you might need to understand. In Ukraine, for example, we would give information that some students may present with both Ukrainian and Russian documents, and that is a legitimate case that you might expect. Just to give some context for what we would say about those particular entities. Julia, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think you had something you wanted to say.
No, I was actually going to go to the next question at this point. And that is a question from Yuki, who asked, is there a training planned on transfer? And Yuki, while I don't know all the trainings that are planned, we hold a technology and transfer conference that is only virtual in July, and we will be doing a session or possibly a double session on transfer credit, specifically focused on international transfer credit. And I assume that's what you're looking for, is the international transfer credit. I don't think there's anything planned at annual meeting on that topic, but exactly what we always look forward to knowing and hearing about from you all in our ACRO department is what would you like to see done? And we would be glad to think about hosting a webinar and having some of you participate in that. If you'd like to do some research and possibly have a topic, please contact us, because we'd be glad to work with you and to help you so that we could present that to any of our members that might be interested, rather than, a small group. So let us know if you're interested in in that topic. And I do think there will be at least a session, if not a double session, at the Technology and Transfer Conference, but we are also open to doing a webinar on such a topic.
Julie, can I add to that?
Yes.
The Acro Institutes are in February and July, and we just finished the February one. And pre-pandemic, the way it worked was that the Summer Institute, as it was called then, was generally for real beginners, people that have just started or have very little experience under their belt in the profession of international admissions credential evaluation. And then we started in the winter, usually around February, having the Winter Institute, which was supposed to be for people with a little more experience, perhaps as much as 5 years, and included international transfer credit. That was the emphasis there, as opposed to the more general summer institutes. Then comes the pandemic, and it all stops. And then now we're starting it up again. And so Annetta Stroud of Acro is the one that oversees the curriculum on that. And I can pass on to her that there's interest out there. I think we're going to try to touch on it whenever in either institute, but it may not be the major feature that it was pre-pandemic. But I'll pass on to her that there is interest out there for folks with at least a little bit of time spent on international transfer credit.
Thanks, Robert. I couldn't agree more. That's the way to get these things to happen, is let us know there's interest and that you're looking to sign up for something, and then we'll do it, because Robert is exactly right. It used to be that we focused on transfer, and we'd love to do that again.
The creation
Yes.
of this Edge user group actually comes from all of you. We used to do this only at the annual meeting, and it was something that people said they wanted a more robust way to connect and to understand what was going on. So we really do try to listen and incorporate all of your suggestions. We are we like to help. We like to implement those best practices.
Indeed, we do. And I think we've answered, let's see, all the open questions. Yep, we're good. All right. So going on to our next slide. I added this slide actually because I wanted to let you all know, in case you weren't aware, that Acro at its last annual meeting changed its bylaws, and in a very a way that promotes equity, and I just think is better overall. And that is that rather than have closed rosters that an institution only had so many members based on their size and what they had, we've opened up our rosters. So our rosters are now open, and this is done by a bylaw change, which means if your institution's a member, that institution can have as many members on their roster as is appropriate for them, as they see fit. So if your institution's a member, and we've given you this page here, please check that out, and you're not on the roster, you can be added, which would give you all the benefits of membership. And Acro Exchange being one of those things, and so many other things. I will note here, and this is an important note, that Acro membership is separate and different than an Edge subscription. Okay, you do not have to be a member of Acro to have an Edge subscription, although you'll get a member rate if you do, but they are two separate things. So membership in Acro is one thing, and a subscription to Edge is another. So just want to emphasize that there, but I want you to know that the rosters are open. So if your institution is a member, please get yourself on there. And there's, Velma just put the link in how you can check to see about membership, the membership status check.
Julia, we were talking about that distinction between Acro membership and an Acro Edge subscription. And so internally, I even make sure to talk about membership versus a subscription. Is just the way that we kind of talk about that. But what to get into the exchange, where you have the international activities community, all of that, that is through Acro membership, which, as Julia said, gets you that discounted Edge subscription rate.
Correct. So two separate things. And that's it. I'm going to turn it over to you, Drew, to do the last couple of slides since we're almost at time.
Yeah,
Yes,
we did have,
Suli has a comment. I'm sorry. I think Suli had a comment. Confirming I heard correctly, ACRO members are now unlimited for the institution. Yes, that is exactly right, Suli. So if your institution's a member, you're not limited to 8, 10, 12 members. You can have as many members as you would like from your institution. If the institution's
it
a
is
member,
fantastic.
you can be a member.
It is fantastic professional development for everyone. It's going to give you access to Transcript, which is a newsletter that we publish, and you get Connect. You're going to get more updates on what ACRO is going on. You don't even have to be on an ACRO membership to get Connect right now. You can sign up just all by itself. But there really are tons of benefits to joining ACRO membership, and if your institution is already there, it is just reaching out to that individual, that primary contact, through the link that was shared, and you can get on there and get all those benefits. Sorry, here we go.
Right, and well, I'm going to add one more thing. I just see that you put something into the chat about Palestine. The Hive is always wonderful, right? You know, the Hive mentality and the Hive network. And we would love to find somebody who wants to author Palestine for our EDGE profile. So if you're interested in that, the Nathanson Fund that was recently mentioned would be one option of helping you to do that. So consider that as well. I'm done.
No, that's great. Always something to think about. That's a nice little 1-2 punch with the Gloria Nathanson grant and the Setmeyer Award. Something to just think about when you're doing all that research there at your desk. Well, so we had a couple of questions that were coming in through the chat, but it seems like we've pretty much wrapped it all up. Anything else that we're going to talk about today before we're all done, or is that the end of the slide deck, Belma? I think that's pretty much all. Thank you all. We're going to be back same bat time, same bat channel, the third Thursday of the month. We'll see you in March. It's almost spring. Thanks.